they will become sterile. They won't be able to give birth. They won't be able to create children. That's what will happen. Because they will be so out of tune with the planet.
Yes.
The planet will actually reject them, and they will no longer be connected to the planet. And the planet will therefore say, well, you're on my back. You're not part of me. And these people won't be able to have children. That's what will happen. So before that, there will be what you're describing, which is the psychological breakdown, where they will just simply go mad because they cannot make those changes, because they're just not designed to make those changes. But in order to remove it, just like any good program, they will become sterile. So that through a natural process, no one's going to be put against a wall and shot.
Right.
Through a natural process of evolution, they will just die out, relieving the new species that can survive and adapt and change. There are definitely friends helping. That's the first thing to say. The CERN device could create a huge amount of energy, which the design was to effect that wave of energy which you have already mentioned that was coming down, and to fracture it in such a way as it would hold up or slow down the process of ascension for humanity. But he was the backstop. If the CERN device had worked, everything would have fallen on him. But as it happened, the CERN device did not work. Therefore, we didn't have to face that issue. We didn't require him, but what he did was right. What they'll do, they'll say they're looking for boson-Higgs particles, they're looking for dark energy. They'll blind people with science and give them references to something that NASA has put out on the internet at some point in the past. That there are many, many institutes who are funded to look for these particles. And it sounds very convincing. The question I say to people is, hang on a minute, this is built by a consortium, right? There are no shareholders. And who money mad in this world would invest millions of pounds if there was nothing back for them? Business people don't do that.
No.
They don't give money if there's no return. So they're not going to give millions of pounds for something to find a boson-Higgs particle, which some chap's going to get a Nobel Award for, but they're not going to get any hard cash. And the reality was that the United States of America put pressure on all of its allies to raid their black budgets to pay for the CERN device. So it's run by America. It didn't work. It didn't work when they needed it to work, which is good.
But have they given up on it?
No, they haven't. After the terrible, terrible earthquake for Japan, which brought Japan to its knees, people don't realise that Japan was a net exporter prior to the terrible disaster. It's now a net importer. That's how they've been turned upside down. And they have accepted the fact that the next collider will be built in Japan. It's not going to be, the question was whether to build a linear collider or a circular collider, because they'll do different things. But the Japanese have agreed that the next collider will be built in Japan, and the thinking there is, well, look, if we build the collider, we won't have another earthquake, will we?
Wow.
So that's the next, and that is what they're building. The question is, the argument now is how much Japan is going to be expected to pay for it. I think the Americans expected the Japanese to pay for all of it, and the Japanese have shown a bit of muscle and said they're not going to pay for all of it. So they're debating now how much, but the work will soon be started. Yes. Oh, right, okay. We mentioned this a little earlier, I did mention it earlier, the three generals who were removed.
Yes.
People need to understand that when in America, which is the important one, it doesn't matter who wins, whether they're Republican or Democrat, they are both controlled, except for Kennedy. They are controlled, well, after Kennedy, that's the rule. In Britain it's somewhat different. Individuals can actually raise to power that are not the backer of so perhaps talk about that later. But Obama was placed in
Mhm.
because he had certain things he promised to do. One of them was the healthcare bill.
Mhm.
He promised to get that through, and he won the second election.
Mhm.
And the sad thing was that when he came to office, everyone said he is going to be the one who will announce UFOs. Well, they were partly right, because what they picked up on was that he was so involved with that side of it that he was going to have the agenda, but it wasn't the agenda of disclosure.
Mhm.
It was the agenda of forcing things through at a way that had never happened since the days of Bush.
Mhm.
Definition of a soul. The definition is my definition. It doesn't mean it's the one and only definition.
Mhm.
That to me, that is really what you are. I use the term soul because that seems to be the one in the Bible. It seems to be the one that's closest to what I would think that people would understand. That is really you. You inhabit a physical body, and it is the soul that is you. Souls can be not owned, but they can be imprisoned and captured. But they can't be owned, but they can be constrained.